Remember back when the Bungie logo appearing on your screen felt like a holy visitation? It was a time when the masterminds in Bellevue weren't just making games. They were drafting the blueprint for how we'd spend the next 2 decades of our lives. They took a giant black box with a CPU inside and called it the Xbox and gave it a soul. They gave us Halo, and in doing so, they gave an entire generation a reason to skip homework and learn how to curse at strangers over a dial-up connection. They were the architects of the most addictive loops on the planet, the innovators who ate the very concept of innovation for breakfast and washed it down with the tears of their competitors. They were untouchable. They were the golden children of the industry. Then came Destiny, and the Halo, pun absolutely intended, started to slip, just a little. For a while, the magic managed to hold its shape. It took a special kind of wizardry to convince rational, tax-paying adults that repeating the same 3-minute alien skirmish for the 10,000th time wasn't a cry for help, but a noble calling. We weren't just grinding, we were becoming legend. But eventually, the lights started flickering. That legendary Bungie magic didn't just evolve or shift. It started to evaporate like a puddle in a heat wave. Watching this studio fall apart in real time is like watching a majestic national monument crumble to dust because the board of directors decided it was getting too expensive to keep the gift shop staffed. At the epicenter of this slow-motion train wreck is Destiny 2. Let's be honest, it's the digital equivalent of a toxic ex you've blocked 6 times, but still find yourself checking up on at 2 a.m. It's a mindless grinder that demands more weekly hours than a full-time management gig and somehow manages to cost more than a reliable used car. Bungie didn't just build a game. They built a machine so ravenous for engagement that it eventually developed a taste for its own masters. When you treat your players like mere data points to be harvested rather than human beings to be entertained, the soul of the product doesn't just shrink, it shrivels into a raisin. Somewhere along the line, Bungie stopped being a creative powerhouse and transitioned into a content pipeline manager. They became obsessed with the logistics of the treadmill rather than the destination. And their response to player heartbreak has become a parody of corporate apathy. We get a steady stream of the phrase "we are listening," which in Bungie speak translates roughly to, "We've shredded your goodwill to make room for more microtransactions. Now please buy this $15 shader that makes your cape look like a neon blueberry." The audacity is almost impressive if it weren't so exhausting. Then we have the $3.6 billion handshake. In 2022, Sony decided to drop a mountain of cash on a studio whose player base already looked like a weary support group for victims of Stockholm Syndrome. The PR spin surrounding the deal was a masterclass in creative fiction. We were promised synergy. We were promised independence. We were told this was a marriage of creative freedom and technological might. It was a beautiful fairy tale, right up until the moment reality showed up wearing a stiff, pinstriped suit and carrying a clipboard. Before we continue any further, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Otherwise, YouTube's algorithm may never show you my videos again. Let's continue. Financial targets weren't just missed, they were cratered. Reports began to leak out of the offices like radioactive waste. We heard stories of veteran developers, the people who actually understood why the guns felt like butter, shouting into a corporate void about burnout and unsustainable goals. The leadership's response: a firm pat on the back and a command to innovate faster. It's notoriously difficult to dock a ship when the captain is too busy steering it into the pier just to see if the insurance payout covers his new collection of vintage sports cars. The mask didn't just slip in late 2023, it fell off and shattered. The layoffs gutted the very people who kept the community from setting the forums on fire. These weren't just redundant middle managers. They were the composers, the community leads, the people who actually loved the world Bungie built. The message from the C-suite was loud and clear. The employees are the first casualties in the war against the consequences of our own mismanagement. While the highly anticipated Final Shape expansion was pushed back, Bungie spent their energy announcing Marathon, an extraction shooter. Because what the world definitely needed in 2024 was another entry in a genre that is already bloated and dying. It's like trying to host a 5-course dinner party while your kitchen is literally engulfed in flames and the guests are already putting on their coats to leave. Predictably, the darkest corners of the internet found a convenient villain to blame for the rot: Bungie's social initiatives. The phrase "go woke, go broke" became the rallying cry for people who have trouble processing complex financial failure. But let's keep it real for a second, as in this case the Pride emblem didn't cause those massive layoffs. A diversity statement didn't force the company to charge $15 for the color blue or $20 for a dungeon key that used to be part of the base game. Bungie's progressive messaging wasn't the iceberg that sank the ship. It was just the loudest passenger on a vessel that leadership was already steering directly into a glacier at full speed. It is much easier for an angry mob to stay mad at a vibe or a political stance than it is to understand the horrific reality of a disastrously balanced sheet and a decade of corporate ego. The real tragedy here is that the raw talent is still there, buried under layers of executive sludge. The skyboxes in Destiny are still works of art that belong in a gallery. The gunplay still feels better than almost anything else on the market. The bones of a masterpiece are visible, but the body is being crushed by the delusional, almost religious belief of the modern executive, the cult of infinite growth. In the world of high-level gaming finance, it's not enough to make a good game that people like. You have to make a game that people live in, a game that extracts every spare cent from their pockets and every spare second from their lives. Bungie is currently locked in a fight with the most difficult, most bullet-spongy boss they've ever designed, their own reputation. They are trying to convince a jaded, exhausted audience that they still care about the art of the game more than the math of the monetization. But honesty is a resource they've spent far too quickly over the last few years. Every time they ask for trust, they do it with a hand out, palms up, waiting for more silver. The final shape might be a triumph, or it might be a funeral. But regardless of the quality of the next expansion, the Bungie that built the heavy black box and gave us a reason to believe in the future of gaming is gone. They've been replaced by a pipeline manager that is terrified of its own shadow and even more terrified of its parent company's spreadsheets. And honestly, looking at the state of the game and the morale of the community, I don't think they have enough heavy ammo left in the reserves to win this one. The timer is ticking, the wipe mechanic is starting, and the fire team is looking for the exit. This would be the video for today. If you enjoyed, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. Do you have any good memories about Bungie? Share them in the comments. I would like to read them just to reminisce. Bye.